Thank you. Minister, good afternoon and welcome to the House. Minister, it's ironic that we're debating this matter on the very day when the headline in the Irish Independent revealed TDs in line for pay rise to push their wages back over 100,000. As recently as last week, we had yet another commencement debate on the issue of councillors' pay, one of dozens since I first took my seat in 2014. We could paper the walls of this illustrious chamber with the emails and newsletters that have been sent out by senators to councillors, each one promising to secure a pay increase for them. I bucked that trend and told a shocked AILG meeting in Inchydoney in 2015 that there would be no increase in councillors' pay that year or any other year because they are not respected for the work they do, and at any rate there was no political will to increase their pay. I was told then by the President of the AILG, who is now a Minister of State, that there was no room for people like me with solo runs on the matter, and the matter would be handled by government. That was 2015. I was stunned by this because I was the first person to raise the issue of councillors' pay in the Seanad in 2014, soon after the local government reform programme was rolled out. Many at that time told me I should not have spoken publicly about politicians' pay. Why? Should we only deal with these issues in back rooms out of sight of the taxpayer? Councillors work hard for their communities and as such they're entitled to a decent salary. So why did I speak out back then on pay and PRSI? I did so because it was immediately obvious to me that the Local Government Reform Act of 2014, putting people first, had put councillors last, and because of the reforms it greatly increased the workload of councillors and the distances they had to travel across their constituencies. I'm a committed trade unionist and I subscribe fully to the mantra, if you do more work you get more pay. If I've learned anything over the last 6.5 years, it's that as constituents, councillors are treated appallingly by government members, and it takes a court case or some other metaphorical gun to the head to get results. In 2016, I was rapporteur for Class K PRSI at the Education and Welfare Committee. This PRSI class is charged at 4%, the same as Class A, but there are absolutely no benefits for it. I'd raised the matter through commencement debates in the Seanad, but government were unwilling to act on this. So I assembled a group of county councillors who were willing to take a massive risk of costs and take a constitutional challenge to the High Court against having the Class K PRSI. The challenge, which resulted in the government changing councillors' pay PRSI to Class A, was the outcome. But how much money was spent trying to preserve Class K PRSI for the government to capitulate at the last moment? It's deeply regrettable that this has been the only major achievement for councillors' terms and conditions in all those years, and it would never have happened if those brave councillors who joined with me hadn't moved on it in the first place. Promises are made, especially at Seanad election times and during the formation of the present government, promises which were soon forgotten once TDs and senators had secured their seats in the offices. As someone who came to this House from outside the political establishment, I find it disgusting, and I applaud councillors for their patience, particularly with their own political parties. I'm horrified every time I hear a government senator call on the minister to resolve the issue of councillors' pay. That's window dressing of the worst kind. As one councillor said to me, do they think we're all stupid enough to believe a word of it? Over the last 6.5 years, Fianna Fáil have blamed Fine Gael for this failure, and now we have Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael in power since this time last year, and still nothing has been done. If there's any reason for this unforgivable heel-dragging, it can only be cowardice. We have political parties afraid to upset the public by giving pay increases to those on the lowest rung of the ladder, but arguably the most important step on the political ladder. However, as is evident from today's paper, they are not afraid to accept pay increases and increased numbers of ministerial positions and advisers themselves. It really smacks of pulling the ladder up behind them. In 2018, the long-awaited Moorhead report was published. Some of the report's 10 major recommendations have been contentious, particularly those relating to pay, allowances, expenses and pension entitlements. I acknowledge the difference of opinion on how best to remunerate councillors for their work, but this cannot be used as an excuse to delay. It's now 2021 and the commitment in the programme for government to implement the pay element of Moorhead is fast approaching. Can you confirm for us today, Minister, if what was reported in the media is true? Has Cabinet signed off on the proposals which we're told you brought to Minister McGrath before Christmas? I'm certain that your reply is eagerly awaited by the hundreds of councillors who are watching this today. Perhaps there is a plan somewhere to price ordinary people out of politics. Perhaps government would prefer it if only the wealthy could enter politics on the lowest rung of the ladder. Many councillors are unemployed. Many more will be unemployed at the end of this pandemic. Many of those are women, and the council salary is their only income. Perhaps government would prefer it if they did not run for election. The media also listening in. I would ask the esteemed political press corps to stop adding to councillors' problems by framing this debate as whopping pay increases, very generous allowances, big expenses, etc. This not only reduces public trust in democracy, it undermines the councillors' case. I can tell you that they are sick to the teeth of being portrayed in this way. The miserly pay increase recommended in Moorhead has been reported in the media many times already, and not a single cent has been paid over. I ask the media to stop this. We saw what happened in the USA when the democratic process was undermined. It may sell newspapers, but it's grossly unfair on councillors and democracy itself. Minister, I do appreciate you're only in office a short time and that you're confronted with this issue, so I do appreciate that. But I have to ask you today, Minister, can you guarantee that no councillor will be worse off if Moorhead is implemented? Can you tell me what the rate of pay will be? Will the payment match a grade in the public service, or will the payment be linked to the pay of senators and TDs? If the payment is linked to a public service grade, will it track that grade always? Will there be an incremental scale, or will the payment be a flat payment? When precisely will this payment commence? Will the pay be retrospective, as was promised, back to the date of the last election? Will you, Minister, remove the requirement for travel accumulation for councillors as recommended by the Moorhead report? For example, many councillors are travelling massive distances for council meetings, but they're also members of ETBs, they're members of the Health Board, and they have various other public services that they're involved with. And this is becoming a massive problem and a disincentive to having them involved in these particular organisations. Minister, those are the questions that have been put to me over the last few days by county councillors from all parties and none. I really do think it is most regrettable that we're standing here today, 6 years later, and nothing has been done. County councillors, not only are they the go-to people in local authority areas, but they work extremely hard. They are committed to their communities, they're committed to their own political parties, and at a time of election they are the foot soldiers of political parties. We should not be embarrassed about arguing the case for pay for county councillors. They deserve what they're getting. We reduced the numbers greatly in 2014 and we increased the area. So I do believe that it is time that we took on board the difficult task of getting the remuneration correct for them, get them paid, get them looked after. There are a number of other things that I might bring up a little bit later on, but as for now, I think I'll hand over to my colleague, Senator Keoghan. Thank you very much indeed, Minister.
Thank you, Gerard, and I thank all the senators for their contributions. And obviously we can hear very clearly the frustration that's been articulated by all members of this House and indeed by members of our local authorities right across the country, all 31, and I fully empathise and understand that, because, as we know, this issue is going on far too long, and I fully accept that, and we do need a way forward very, very quickly. Just in terms of, first of all, I just want to outline in terms of the Moorhead report what actually happens in terms of our local authorities, where we are now in terms of my work, and hopefully where we aim to end up. And also, I might just mention the non-pay aspects of Moorhead. So first of all, obviously one of the key bones of contention contained within the Moorhead report is this view that our local authority members work 18.5 hours a week. And that was a view, a determination that the independent senior council made at that juncture. And when one looks at it coming from a perspective where I'm coming from, who was elected to Westmeath County Council, had the privilege and the honour to get the chance to serve my local community back in 2009, and also the chance to serve as Cathaoirleach of my county, chairperson of our town council and mayor of our town in my last year, I could see first-hand the huge effort that goes in terms of public representation at a local authority level. And indeed, in a recent report, I just noted that there's 600 individual services that the local authority provides to citizens in each of the 31 local authorities. So local government is the closest arm to the citizen. There's no doubt upon that. And when I think and reflect on those 18.5 hours and look at the 360 statutory bodies that have to be filled through nominations from our 31 local authorities, 1,100 nominations. When I look at the 400 external bodies that have to be filled through our 31 local authorities, 1,010 individual nominations. That's 2,140 nominations that have to be filled via our 949 councillors in this state. That is a significant voluntary role that councillors take up day in, day out. And when I also look at and reflect upon the Public Participation Network, which was established in 2004, with an average of 360 community groups with each local authority that councillors deal with on a very daily basis, working with them, trying to advise them of grants, trying to advise them of various different ways to improve their community and indeed improve society at large. And I also reflect upon the very vulnerable people that our local authority members engage with day after day, week after week, helping elderly people fill in grant housing adaptation forms, or be it a family in crisis to try and get housing supports and social housing. Those are the key roles that I am very aware that our local authority members are involved in day by day, week by week. And as I reflect on that, I also look at, in terms of the work that AILG and LAMA have done, in terms of the surveying, in terms of what the likely working week of a local authority member is. And it's obviously significantly greater than 18.5 hours. And I think we're all agreed upon that, because the representation role is also vital. It's the lifeblood in terms of how a local councillor engages with his or her community, and also in terms of how they get feedback on the ground and get views of society at large and what direction they're going in. Secondly, I just want to set out the trajectory of where we are. Obviously, it was in June 2018 that Sarah Moorhead was appointed to commission a report into the pay and conditions of local authority members. And it was back in July 2018 that Sarah Moorhead, in June 2020, when the report was published by government at that stage. And the programme for government, obviously subsequent to that, has committed to endorsing the report and also implementing it within 12 months on the formation of the government. And obviously, when I found myself and had the privilege of being appointed to the current role that I have, I immediately set about engaging with our local representatives. I operated an open door policy from day one. I spoke with and met with many councillors across the country. I engaged with AILG and LAMA, held a series of meetings with them to see what their view is on the Moorhead report, and also many members of this House and indeed Dáil Éireann, in terms of to get their view on the report. And obviously Sarah Moorhead has made her recommendation. I listened, and take huge value from the views that our local authority members have given in relation to the recommendation of the Moorhead report. And I hold great value in that. And I have crafted a proposal on foot of that I hope will reflect the role of a councillor, but also will be robust, will be transparent, and will stand up to the highest scrutiny in terms of public probity, because I think that's very important in any proposal that we go with. And my engagement was very fruitful in terms of what I learned as well, in terms of frustrations that councillors have at the moment. But the factual matter is now that proposal has been crafted by me and Minister O'Brien and presented to the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform for approval, because we obviously do need consent from DEPR in order to approve any proposal. And I look forward in the coming weeks to work with the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform and the Government to deliver this programme within the timeframe of the programme for government, because I think that's very important that we do meet that commitment. It's an important commitment that was given on the formation of the government. And anyone, in terms of, as I progress this through the department that I'm in and further afield, the programme for government is the cornerstone that sets out the direction of travel for the next 5 years for any government. And this is contained, it's time limited, written down within the programme, and that's what I hope to work and deliver upon. Just in terms of the various different contributions, I was very struck by a few. Senator Fitzpatrick, who pointed out about maternity leave. And I know in terms of the non-pay aspect to the Moorhead report are very important. And broader than that, issues that were raised to me by a number of local authority members who are confronted with situations that they're very frustrated by. And I absolutely understand that. And that's why immediately we've established a working group which has already met. I attended the first meeting of it to set out a very clear direction of how we're going to improve efficiencies within the local authority sector, and also how we're going to support councillors. Because when I look into a council chamber, I want to see a reflection of society at large in terms of gender, in terms of diversity, and how society operates, because that's how you get the best decision making. And I want to support local authority members to absolutely achieve that. And this group will hopefully come back in Q2 with a series of recommendations this year to me in relation to maternity leave and also other areas that are impacted in terms of supports for councillors, training, etc. Because all that is very, very important. When I heard Senator Fitzpatrick talking about having her baby and someone suggesting why isn't she at a meeting, we don't want that in this country. And as a progressive person and as a young father, I see that that's not right. But I want to offer real maternity leave. I think we can be brought into a situation where we falsely believe we can change an instrument and that will provide maternity leave. I want a system that people can use, can feel free to operate, and that will be a huge support to bring more women and bring more people into the local authority system. I think that's very important, and I'm absolutely committed to trying to work and to deliver that. And believe you me, I won't leave any stone unturned in trying to do that. Also, a number of members mentioned retention. And that's so, so important at the moment, because I look around and see very good people being lost from our local authority system. And that's a crying shame. We really need to respond to that challenge and ensure that the supports are there, because again, as I said, we want society at large to be reflected within our council chamber. And obviously we'll do everything we can to do that. And just could I briefly just mention in terms of Senator Moynihan, I thought was very fair in her contribution in terms of outlining the various different challenges we've come through, but also that everyone in this House wants the same thing. We're all in agreement here, and I value that everyone is working together trying to deliver on this. Both myself and Minister O'Brien in the Department, with the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and a government decision. And whether it needs a government decision or it needs a regulation, whatever it needs, the proposal is there, and let's just get on and do it. And once we have that done, as I know, when you're talking to a number of councillors up and down the country, this issue comes up consistently. And I want to get on to talking about reform, talking about the real things that matter so much to members of local government and to our citizens. And it's vital that we get the opportunity to do that now and do it quickly. And I know, listening to a number of councillors, that frustration is obviously very clear that's coming through. And that's good to see too, because they're obviously liaising with our local authority members, and that's coming back in terms of the feedback through that. And I myself obviously are doing that. I just acknowledge Senator Siri Carney has been on to me a number of times about the maternity leave issue as well, because it is a huge issue and it's one we really need to solve. And as I said, through the non-pay aspects, hopefully we will be able to deliver upon that. Also, Senator Wall mentioned online bullying, and that's a huge issue that young councillors, are concerned about. People feel, afraid almost to run for election when you see, in terms of some of the online behaviour of a minority of people, I may add. But it is very frustrating to see that, and I would absolutely commit to raising that with our reform group that we have established to try and see how we can best respond to that or put the key supports in place for people who find themselves in a position like that. So I'd like to finally just to thank all the members for affording me the time to come here. Obviously, we're not opposing the motion as a government because we believe we are all working together in this. We all want the same thing. We all want this resolved. We want it resolved as quickly as possible. And I can assure everyone that I am doing my utmost to do that. And I say that to you sincerely, in good faith, that we want to get this done now. We want to get it done urgently, and I believe that we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And finally, Senator Craughwell, over to you for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Lascaux. Look, Minister, thank you. I can't say that I'm not a little disappointed that the report in the Mirror was clearly inaccurate, and somebody leaked that report to them that Cabinet had already signed off on pay for councillors. I want to thank all of my colleagues in the Chamber today. The respectful way in which this debate was carried out stands testament to all of my colleagues. There's nobody here has the corner on councillors' issues. All of us, I believe, are indebted to the councillors that elect us in some way or other to ensure that representations they make to us are brought to you, Minister, and to the government. And in that regard, I want to again recognise the AILG and LAMA. When I came into politics, I hadn't been a local authority member, and I was always welcomed and treated with the utmost of respect when I went to AILG and LAMA meetings. I'm happy that Fine Gael withdrew its amendment, but I'm not happy that the issues that were in the amendment are not being dealt with straight away. Maternity leave, if we've learned nothing else from COVID-19, we have learned that we can use technology to get around the issues that impact young parents, not just mothers or fathers. And I think that's something, Minister, that you can look at as we move out of this pandemic. Ways in which, I saw it here in 2015, I think it was, a TD had a baby and had to be in the chamber 3 days later because there was an important vote. And that's just totally unacceptable in this day and age that we would do that. A great friend of mine from my teaching days in the Teachers' Union of Ireland, a Fine Gael councillor, Donna Sheridan, brought up the point to me that when she goes to a council meeting, she has to take annual leave because she cannot get time off. That is totally unacceptable. She serves the public, as do many teachers, nurses, and various other public servants. The very least we should do is make arrangements that they can attend their council meeting, and if that can be done remotely, again, it would be great. Some of the non-pay issues, it's not all about pay, and some of my colleagues made that point here today. There are things like, for example, there's huge divergence around the country in the technology that's made available to councillors. Some of them are provided with laptops and printers, and others have computers that are so out of date they're incapable of using technology like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Postage or prepaid envelopes. I was talking to a councillor the other week, and I think it was 25 or 30 euros a week in postage. You know, a stamp is €1. And they are carrying out a public service. So, Minister, you might look at the provision of prepaid envelopes for them. Replacement mobile phones. Again, technology is moving on all the time, and we need to keep abreast of technology for the sake of councillors. The travel. I think one of my colleagues mentioned, Senator Davitt mentioned the councillor who travels from West Cork into Cork City. I mean, it's a day's journey in and out. And he has stood to lose, I think it was €5,000, right? I did actually write to councillors some years back and did warn them against of the accumulation of mileage. I do think Moorhead, it's the one good thing I saw coming out of Moorhead. The Moorhead report, I'm glad, Minister, that you looked at it and then you went to the practitioners on the ground, because I learned very little else when I came in here. Most of us really don't know what councillors do. I had never served on a council, and it has taken me years to build up some knowledge of the amount of work and commitment that's involved for councillors. So, Minister, I have to say I'm leaving today on a bit of a low. I do believe what you said, and I will be holding you to account, and I'm sure the county councillors around the country will be holding all of us in this chamber to account for what was promised today. But I do thank you for taking the time to come here, and I want to thank my colleagues, all of them who spoke in favour of our own electorate and who were not afraid to stand up here today and make a case for our colleagues who are in the front line. Thank you very much indeed for your time, Minister.